everyone. Welcome back to the Artist Forge Live. My name is Nicole York. I'm going to be your host for this live stream today. And with me, of course, are your wonderful and talented co-hosts, Matt Stagliano, Becca Bjorky, and Bassam Sabah. And we are here today to learn how to think like artists. Practicing visual literacy, that is the topic for the day. And of course, of the last few weeks of conversation, we've been talking about visual literacy, what it is, why it's important, and then how we can apply it as artists, not only in the pictures and art that we see and consume, but also in the art that we make. So just as a quick recap, while we wait for a few more friends to join us, if you're here today, don't forget to say hi in the comments. We will bring your comment up and respond to you. Visual literacy is essentially just how do you interpret what you see? When you see something, it gets into your brain. How do you figure out what it means? Does it mean anything? And how do you know? And then, of course, just like literacy, when we are reading the written word, there are certain keys and levers that can help us understand something. In visual literacy, like composition and color palette and subject matter and all of that good stuff. And of course, context and everything else. So if you're here today, say hi, let us know. We want to say hi to you. And while we're waiting for friends to say hi, Matt, Bassam, Becca, how are y'all today?
Doing great. Yeah, my tub is still in my office. Yeah, that's a thing. A couple weeks later, talked about it last time. It's still there. Yeah, but it's going in this weekend. So everything's been good. Working on the house and almost done with one room.
And did you finally take a shower since it's
no shower yet? Nope, still haven't showered since March. Nope.
Good thing we're on.
We don't have smell-o-vision, huh?
Exactly.
Nope. A lot of patchouli though. A lot of patchouli.
It disguises a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. Bassam, how about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, getting ready for a big weekend of partying and celebrating. So.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
You're welcome to join us.
I wish I could. What are you celebrating, if you don't mind my asking?
Tomorrow, my daughter's being called to the bar as a full-fledged lawyer.
Yay!
And Saturday, a big pool party for my son's, kind of his wedding, but he kind of organized a pool party for all his friends. They got married in Las Vegas, as I may have mentioned once. And they're having this party on Saturday for friends and family.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
well, congratulations.
At our house. That's why.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Becca, how about you?
Chilling, doing my Becca things, making doing weird stuff.
Living that best Goblin Queen life.
Yes. We've gone full goblin. You guys saw my feral child earlier with the vampire teeth, and she put makeup all over her face, and she says, "I'm going to war," and ran off growling. So
I support her.
Yeah.
Ask her if she needs a general.
She is the general.
Oh, okay. What about a captain? I could be a captain.
She will take servitude in whatever she can take it. So.
You've got that role filled, so she goes to school this year, Mom. It's okay.
So soon. 1 month.
Hey, a question completely off topic.
Yep.
Have you guys been looking at Pratik's AI stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like unbelievable.
Join us, Bassam, in the robot.
Yeah, I know. I tried once.
Come along to the robot.
Yes. No, I'm in there. I'm in there. I tried once. I just haven't taken the time to do something properly. But Pratik came up with a how-to guide, so I'm gonna study that first.
Nice.
I signed up for Midjourney yesterday and got so confused because I'm not a Discord user that I didn't know if I was going to be that guy that types the wrong thing into the wrong room with the wrong prompt. And then suddenly I'm like, loser, boomer, get out of here. Like, so I haven't done anything. I'm cautiously
How do you choose
approaching
a room?
it.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
like
think
this.
it's actually there's limitations. So if you don't have access or you don't type the correct prompt, I think it won't let you embarrass yourself. So
you need to make stuff in a private conversation with the bot.
You'd be
Send
surprised
a private
how I
message
can
to the
embarrass
bot,
myself.
and then you can make everything in there.
Oh, you
Super
can
easy.
do that. Okay.
Yeah. / imagine, type in what you want it to do. That's it. That's all.
This is foreign language.
Oh, you don't have to choose a room first, or no?
You could just have a conversation with the bot and do it all in there.
God.
It
My
keeps it
best
all
friend's
hidden.
a bot.
Sneaky, sneaky. Okay, we can talk about that another time, though. However,
yes.
I did actually make a couple things in Midjourney specifically for today to
Oh,
see what it would come up with and whether or not you guys would be able to read the intent behind the creation purely by what it made. So, if we have time, that might be something worth doing. So, it's all right. Who else is here with us today? I see we're grabbing folks and losing folks. We want to say hi to you. And remember, if you want us to be able to see your name, you need to give StreamYard permission on Facebook, unfortunately. But if you're in any of the other lands like YouTube, say hi. We will grab you and bring you up. All right. So just to kind of recap where we're at, we were discussing visual literacy and the 3 pillars of visual literacy, according to me, because I make up the rules. The first one being the context of the image, right? So where you see it, what it's surrounded by, and how that informs your interpretation. And then the being the internal language of the image, so what the artist puts into the creation of the image itself, and then the external language of the image, so what has the artist included with the piece of art, like maybe the plaque with the name on it, or the title, or an artist statement, or anything else that's meant to inform the viewer and help them interpret the image. So they're kind of the main aspects of visual literacy. We've covered context. We talked about where you see an image, maybe in a magazine versus in a museum or in a hotel or somebody's room, versus like the culture that the image is shared in and how culture helps us interpret the things that we see. And then we are now starting to move into the internal language of the image, the things the artist included in the creation of the piece of art. So we talked about the influences that we have, and of course culture is included in there, but what kind of art we consume and how that has an influence on what we make. And we talked about what else do we talk about, y'all? Help me out here. I have brain fart. I clearly need another bite of brownie.
I'm unmuted, but subject. We talked about subject.
Right. So what's the subject?
The subject was the subject.
And
Indeed.
theme. We talked about theme.
Theme.
Themes,
Yes, we
that's right.
did. Yes. So we covered already some of that internal language, and now we're going to actually look at a few images, and we're going to approach these a little bit differently. So if you have been with us in the past, when we use visual literacy to try to deconstruct an image, we start by how it makes us feel, and then we ask why. This time, we're actually going to look at the images, and we're going to state what we see. So what do we see? I know that's a really broad question, and I'm leaving that open to your interpretation to answer as makes the most sense to you. But I would love for you to keep in mind, what is this for? And the reason that I'm framing it that way is because when we talk about things like context and culture, there are visual cues that will let us know the purpose of an image. We can usually tell the difference between an advertisement and a portrait. Why? Something's happening visually there that cues us in to the purpose of a thing. And I want to see if maybe we can pick some of that up as we look at the different selections of art that we have for today. So before we start looking at those, yes, they're catching it too. Subject matter. Does anybody have anything that they want to bring up or any questions that they want to ask before we actually spend time looking at the images and trying to break them down? Yeah.
No.
Friends in the audience, if you have anything, now is the time, because we will start checking out some of this cool art here in just a second. So we have some photographs, we have some paintings, and even a sculptural piece. It would be considered a sculptural piece, don't you think, Becca? The Man Ray piece.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's a ready-made kind of.
Yeah, I guess I consider them still kind of sculptural. I think if it's like a thing, I always think of it as sculptural, but Sarah's here. Hello, Sarah. So glad to have you with us today. All right, so let's just go ahead and begin. We're going to start. I'm going to share this first image that we have to look at. So having a look at the image, what do you see? What is this? If you're in the comments today, if you're hanging out, if you're in the audience, we want to hear from you too. Make sure you share. What do you see? Oh, it's Sharon. Okay. It's our friend Sharon. I'm sorry, Sharon. Okay.
I see a pretty lady.
Bassam, you got a portrait. Becca's got a pretty lady.
I keep thinking ad, like makeup ad, but that's not this. This is more portrait, straight portrait.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in the audience today and you're looking at this image, what do you see? What is this? And I have an opinion as well, but I want to make sure I'm not that kind of unduly influencing anybody who's going to answer before. So portrait.
When I say portrait, I mean like retail portrait, personal branding. Level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I see a beauty portrait. Painterly portrait. Totally fair. So when we see this, let's break that down a little bit. So we're saying that this is a portrait. Why is this a portrait and not something else? Why is this not a makeup ad or a hair ad, or why is this a portrait?
There's not enough emphasis on any one thing, right? If it was a makeup ad, you'd be closer to the lips or the eyes or the pores, and you'd see a little bit more of that. If it was a hair ad, same kind of rules apply. Clothing, jewelry, nails, anything like that, I think would be called out in a different composition, and you'd have a different focus for your eye. This, you're clearly drawn to her face, so it just makes me think over and over, like we're meant to just be looking dead at her face and understand the portrait rather than have it be anything else other than that. Just not enough story to be anything other than that.
Okay.
On the technical side too, I feel like there's a softness to the photograph that doesn't necessarily lend itself to something more commercial like an ad, which is, it's flattering on a portrait, wanting to feel good about yourself, and the skin's real smooth and it's very pretty and it's delicate material, but it doesn't say advertising in that post-production treatment to me.
And so if you were looking at post-production treatment, Becca, for advertising, what would you expect to see then that this does not have?
Like Matt said, a lot of that focus, and also like a little bit probably. Also, I'm looking at it small, so maybe that's impacting.
Well, let's.
Yeah, definitely just a different approach to the skin, I think, would have a very, very different feel. And even just cropped tight like that on the shoulder would change the read of the picture a lot.
Yeah, so if we were here,
I'd be thinking lipstick. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that gives it away that it would not be an advertisement or it is the non-retouched blouse. Right? If it was a commercial thing, it would be completely perfect.
But Ella would definitely be picking up on that.
Yeah.
She always can tell us.
Yeah, some of the creases and would not be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So agreeing with you there, I think that's still Sharon agreeing with you, Matt. And yeah, my read is exactly the same. This is a beauty portrait because everything in this is pointing to her face. It's not, like Becca said, close enough or sharp enough. And this is not a model. Like this is not a commercial beauty model. This is a beautiful woman. This is not a commercial beauty model. And there is a difference. And the treatment is then, of course, all about showing her beauty off. The way that I read this is, here's a beautiful woman. This is what this beautiful woman looks like. And I agree with you, Becca, as far as the treatment goes. And I don't see another way to read this convincingly. But if somebody else does, so if you're in the audience today and you're seeing this differently than we are, I would love to hear what it is you're reading in the image. Like, what are you seeing there that would help maybe change?
The only thing I see, only because that's all I do is look at YouTube and social media for retouching stuff. It's almost like a cover photo for a retouching series or for retouching software or skin retouching. That's what it looks like. And yes, she's it's a nice portrait. It's soft, but there's so much retouching on the skin that the white is a bit just the shape of the highlights on her face is leading me to say that, right? It's a bit overdone.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bassam. Like, I mean, obviously, anyone who works in photo, I feel like, has an eye for that particular style of retouching in portraits. However, that's a really great point, that it could be commercially a kind of advertisement for retouching. So, I mean, wherever this came from, I mean, that's kind of where that place of context is going to come into play. Because if that's what you're advertising, how to get perfect, smooth, dull-like skin.
Oop, sorry. That's for later conversation.
Yes,
now
we're done.
You're confused. Now you confused us. Jesus.
Sorry.
Yeah. But even then, if it was for retouching, that's why I said skin retouching. The crease on the shirt would not be there.
So now, and then I'll actually jump in here. And I know we're trying not to spend too much time on a single image, Matt, but I think there's a really good point here. Now, let me ask you this. You would see this as maybe, so Tony's saying he sees that kind of porcelain effect on her skin. Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Would you see this as retouching for high-end anything?
High-end beauty retouching the face.
I wouldn't personally.
Software, quick and dirty
software. I would see software 100%.
Right. Sure. Not a professional retoucher. It's software that does that. Right.
Sure. Yeah. Portraiture, anything like that. Yeah, I could totally see this.
Because it has that overdone effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something in this, and I'm not, we're not getting into necessarily analyzing the image, but I love that comment about it being software, because software loses that nuance where we would dodge and burn differently, but a software is going to look at tones in a different way and make decisions based on that and make it as consistent as possible. And that's what this absolutely feels like. It's like a Portrait Pro or a Portraiture or something to that effect. But right. Yeah, great call, Bassam. But I mean, it'd be a great ad for that, to be like, hey, one-click retouching, boom, done.
Exactly. Right. Retouch for me. That's what it looks like. I don't know if you know that program or that. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And I think that's a really valuable thing to look at here, because, and I'll just throw out a couple of things from my experience, right? But if there are a lot of things that give away the purpose of this image that are not related necessarily to technique, such as the makeup, right? Like This is very much beauty portrait makeup. This is not commercial beauty makeup. And even for the powder that's been used and the shine that's been placed, these are not the kinds of shine that you see in like commercial beauty type images, right? And then a lot of the retouching, which I know Pratik would be able to point out very clearly, but these would be softened. The skin goes gray here. Like, there are little things that if you are retouching for commercial beauty, you will pick up on. And the only people who will see that are the people who know. So like, that's a big point where context comes into play, right? Because we talked about how not only does context inform how we make an image, but how we read an image. And so if you've never studied it or learned how commercial beauty gets shot and retouched, you would not necessarily always see the difference, because to you, this may look like something that could be on a billboard because it's not a thing that you studied, or the small details aren't necessarily things that you've broken down to be able to read maybe some of the more subtle differences in, like purpose and intent.
And again, it doesn't make it a bad image.
No, it's not at all. No.
It's my truck and a drag racer are both cars, but they're used in completely different ways. And I think that's the same kind of thing with this. This definitely has its place in the photographic universe. It's not, I wouldn't consider it commercial.
Yeah. The other little detail that gives it away in terms of not being commercial is the nails wouldn't be 2 or 3 weeks old. I don't know how old these nails are, but there's actually space.
The fact that you know and read that, Bassam, I love it so much.
Yeah.
I love it.
Zoom in
you're
on
absolutely
them.
right.
How old are they?
You're
How old
absolutely
is that?
right.
1 week, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
like,
know because I don't I don't even have any. I have
Not
to keep
bad.
them short so I can climb. But yeah, that's a completely perfect point.
I love you, Bassam.
Oh,
That's a man who photographs women, guys. That's how he knows.
but this is my type of simple portrait, but with hopefully better retouching. Let's put it that way. On the skin, anyways.
Right. Okay, so we started with this shot just looking at it to see what we could read. And for many of us with a portrait photographer background, the things that we can pick up obviously come from what we know. So friends in the audience, like we need to hear from you. Make sure that you're kind of sharing what you see. So we're going to move to the next one. I picked these two images next to each other for a really specific reason. So I want to start just by asking everybody, friends in the audience, what do you see? Share that in the comments and we will bring it up on screen.
More pretty ladies.
Yay for pretty ladies.
Again, my eye is always drawn to your background, Nicole, with that like underwear thing under the picture, you know, from the background image. Like it's always there.
Sorry, I'll pick a new one.
Yeah, I mean, that's more commercial. Like I could see clothing, coat commercial or magazine, you know, but again, that you know, there's like creases down in the skirt.
But what do you see, Bassam? What is the subject of this picture?
To me, it's the outfit. To me, it's the scarf and the coat and the hat, obviously, but it's the outfit.
Yeah, totally.
Right? There's nothing about the woman that's particular for me. It's just a modeling clothes.
Yep, and I think I'm assuming this is Sharon again, branding type portrait. She said
This screams small brand Instagram ad.
That's
right.
Fall season, small, as Sarah says, small season. Yeah, fall season, comma, small brand.
This could very easily be an e-com on somebody's website, right? Like product shot, lifestyle
that's what I'm getting at.
Yep.
It's all about the jacket and the tones, and I'm waiting for fall sale 2022 to slide in from the sides, you know, and it's very much that. I like this. It's definitely an ad for the scarf or the glasses or the jacket or whatnot, but the tones all lead me towards the jacket, and that's what's trying to draw the attention to.
So, and Sharon is saying this woman has style.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah, I think at least for me, everybody's reading this one right on. This is very much about the style. And of course, that means it could go in several places, right? Like if she's an Instagram influencer for like style, this could totally be on her page. If it's a small brand, this could totally be on her page, but it's definitely about the clothes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
For
Sharon,
sure.
catalog, that's what she was thinking. Yeah. Yep. So what leads us to say that? When we look at this and we determine this isn't a portrait and this is not high-end, like a high-end ad, right? What leads us toward, right. So what's leading us toward like small brand clothing related? Why do we read that?
I think typical pose. I mean, the pose really gives it away.
I think for me, it was a couple of the things we talked about in the last portrait, right? The skirt has a couple of wrinkles and things in it. So it's not high-end retouch, which led me to the small brand part. The leaves being, you know, very autumnal, having it be orange, have that be the dominant tone, not only in the grass, but in the trees, is giving me the overall orange. So where's my eye going to go? Right to the jacket, rather than her face, which has the same tone, but it's masked in black and glasses and scarf, right? So I'm looking clearly at the outfit. So I think the background meant to be those complementary colors in that green, you know, orangey field fade into the background because all I'm seeing is the jacket and the skirt. Right? They're not distracting me from anything else. So clearly for me, the focus is the outfit.
Yeah. And I think audience agreeing with you, and the face is obscured. So that plays into it too, right?
And the other detail that would probably not be there if it was high end fashion or it's that branch coming out of her hat.
Yeah.
Right. That wouldn't be there.
So obviously a lot of things that we're reading into this here that gives us those. Also, the model, this is not a high-end model, right? Like if you're selling high-end, if you're doing editorial clothing, this is not the model who's going to do that. And
why do you
she's
say
beautiful.
that? Why do you say that, Nicole?
Well,
Because I don't see that.
the way that she's been treated, the type of brow, the makeup that she has on, the pores that are clear in her skin, the overdoing of the sculpting in the cheekbones, all of that kind of stuff. This is a beautiful woman. This is not a $10,000 a day model.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. She could be a $500 a day model.
100%. No, yeah, she probably, like, she could 100% shoot catalog stuff and lifestyle things, and she'd probably be great commercially. You know, so there's small, slight differences, I think.
I would like to put a $10,000 a day model in this exact picture and see what the difference is.
The difference in posing is going to be enormous, because she's not going to stuff her hands into her pockets and mess with the fit of the clothing. She's going to be showing off the clothing in a clever way. She's going to wear things in a way that makes you want to buy them, and not like
with the same makeup, same stylist, same photographer. Like, that never happens. Someone make that happen.
Somebody do it. All right, so we're going to keep moving quickly. So far, like, we looked at, if we were to cover the things that we just talked about, we looked at the subject, we looked at the framing, because she's there in the center of the frame. So obviously, like, that's the key. The depth of field is also telling us that she is the most important thing here, right? The palette we talked about as, like, centering the clothing there. Tony is saying she's got a scar or perhaps an impression from bike shorts above her knee. That would be caught in a professional shot, right? So, like, all of these little details that we're being able to read that helps us figure out what this is for, which is important because in today's society, we come across images sometimes with very little context. And if we can't read what it is right away, then oftentimes we're just going to either scroll by it or not pay attention to it. The ad is not going to land the way that it should. The portrait's not going to impress like it should. And I have an example for that that we're going to look at in just a minute.
Before you move on, Nicole, I think it's just important to mention, as people watch these and think about it, right? And think about their own work or work that they see. This is kind of the heart of marketing, right? So understanding what the audience is seeing helps you develop images that are going to better attract that audience, right? If you're going for the beauty retouch retail side, that's great. If you're going for catalog stuff, that's great. But just understand, this is what we're seeing. We don't know any of these images, and the immediate read is X, Y, and Z. So when you're making images that you're trying to market, does it have that story? Does it have that feel in it? And, we talk about this all the time in terms of how we apply it to our business. But I think these are great examples of, we don't know what's coming up next except for you, Nicole. And these are the immediate reads, which is what people are doing to your shit all the time.
100%.
Right? So, yeah, it's a great exercise. I love this.
And also, to be super clear, these are still great. Like, just because we're mentioning where we think it lands, that doesn't mean they're not great, right? They just don't serve the same purpose. That's all we're saying when we're saying, like, would be the difference we would read between something we expected as high end and something that fits in a different market. It's literally just where it lives. That's all. So if somebody took this shot, like, I would be happy with it. That's a nice shot, like, just to be clear. And then also to kind of tie on to the end of that, Matt, as you mentioned, and then also we've talked about this before, but with visual literacy as a visual species, we read that fast. We look at something, we know if we like it that quickly, we know if it's going to give us an emotion that fast. Like, our ability to process the things that we see happens so quickly that if we don't nail the thing, it leaves us with that feeling of, And so we have to understand, and looking at something as a thumbnail is a really great way to know if you have the bones of the thing. Or, you know, letting your eyes go unfocused is a really great way to judge things like tonal composition. So just like a couple things to think about. So when something doesn't work and when we don't know what to do with it, we're going to look at this and try to figure out what this is. So what do you see?
I see a man and some muscles.
So
yeah,
I see lines that tie into the shorts, lines that tie into the sneakers. All of that is meant to bring you to the brand. This is straight up a commercial ad. I'm waiting for Adidas something or other just down in the lower left corner, right? This screams
Sarah
Adidas.
agrees.
Yeah.
Can I see the logo?
Caveat, my wife used to work, my ex-wife used to work for Adidas.
No, on the shirt.
Oh. Adidas.
oh. But it's not obvious on the shirt, which
On
would
the
be,
shirt, it's
which
not.
would be surprising. Yeah, you figure you would have them the other way around so that you can see the name on the.
No, I see that differently, Bassam. I see it as, wow, that shirt looks great on that guy. I want to know who makes that shirt. I don't need to see the logo. I just want to figure out who makes that shirt. That's the way that I read it, but I get what you're saying.
Anyways, I'm not going to say much anymore because Sharon thinks I'm being too picky today.
How are his nails?
That's the important thing. That's what everybody wants to know. So I'm curious. So we've got the clothes here, right? Let me ask you, aside from the clothes, does this actually make sense to you?
Nope.
No, not to me at all.
Nope.
What is this pose?
Even
This
the
isn't a
hands.
dance.
No.
It's not athletic. He's not kicking a soccer ball, or he didn't just get done with a workout at the gym.
The hands are kind of odd.
I'm going to challenge that a little bit. I see a couple of things, right? And this will get a little bit deep. Maybe it's the lime truly that's hitting me a little bit harder, right?
Spit it out.
But
just say it.
what I'm seeing is reinforcement of the Adidas brand, which has been a cultural icon for a lot of years, right? You've got B-Boys, you've got Run DMC with the white shell toes, right? You got a lot of throwback there. You've got athleticism, right? You've got tight fitting. So it's fitness, it's, all sorts of athletics, but it's not connecting to one single sport. It's like, if you are an athletic person, you like to dance, you like to do things actively, this is the brand for you. And I kind of like that the pose isn't something obvious. It's just showing that this person has a lot of athletic capability. And that is the idea that comes through to me, rather than what is the linear story that we're looking at. I kind of like the fact that it's just really bright and you're drawn right to this guy and you're like, wow, I can't do that. There's just something athletic about the whole feel of it. And that's what I like.
You know what gets me is the angle of, like, the perspective of the lens. And I feel like that does something that detracts from what could be a very powerful athletic pose and image, is this downward angle of the lens that's making his feet feel smaller.
So my pug she just thinks she's going to die. I don't know. We're going to do something, which I'm pretty sure that we're allowed to do, since it's for the purposes of, critique and education. And we're not making any money from this. So we're about to find out. This is what Adidas ads look like. These are not ambiguous because they can't afford to be ambiguous. Marketing images have to get the point across now. They have to get the point across quickly. And they need you to know exactly what it is you're doing if you're going to be wearing and doing things with Adidas, right? We have a lot of similarities. We have really punchy colors, right? We've got a really clear place for our eye to go, and we have the Adidas designs. But from my perspective, my read on this is a photographer who wants to be noticed for sports images and for sports branding, and they don't know what they're doing yet.
Doing a spec ad.
They haven't met the little things yet that separates the work that they want to do from the work that they're actually doing, because the pose makes no sense. There isn't anything here. If you were like, if you're looking for, clothes to wear to the gym, you probably don't see this and go, I want that. You probably see, let me grab one of these guys here.
I'm just looking at his calves going, I want those.
It's interesting because I look at his calves and I go, they over dodged and burned his muscles to a proportion that they don't actually exist that way. Like if we were, now I don't know where they are. I put them somewhere. If we were to look at those ads again, you see people sweating. You see people in mid actual movement with basketballs or yoga poses. You see like those kinds of things. And this whole, it's so dramatic. I don't know what it actually is. It just saying too many things so that I couldn't look at it and believe it actually lives anywhere.
Yeah, I think you might be right. This is someone trying to get into commercial or making a spec ad and, throwing some Adidas logo on this and being like, hey, here's what I can do. But I think the things that you mentioned, more I look at the image, right? Going from first impression to now, let's analyze this thing. I think you're right. And Becca's point about the angle of the lens really interested me too, because I didn't really catch that at first, but now looking at it, yeah, it's completely different take on it.
Well, and you can tell where the photographer is going, right?
Totally.
Like they have the punchy colors, they have the punchy light, they have a fit model, they've got the Adidas clothes. But there are other things that are not happening that usually would be happening for us to expect from that kind of an image. Okay, let's continue.
Yep.
So now we are going to move on.
Oof. Change of direction.
Change of direction.
Happy birthday card.
I'm going to zoom in. And we're going to kind of look at everything really quickly. So wait to say what you see until you've had a chance to see everything. Can you hear my pug snoring? I should mute myself. You want to mute me real quick, Matt?
Absolutely not.
Enjoy the pug. All right. So what do we see?
What is that instrument on the floor? I can't really see it.
Looks like a spec. Is it a specter? Is that the right word?
I think it's a
Scepter is what you think.
Scepter,
I think it is a spear.
Spear. Okay.
We have the pointy. We've got blood on the floor here.
Yeah.
Carpet is kind of messed up there.
Yeah.
Looks like a tipped over chair.
Yeah. Oh.
So what do we see? Friends in the audience, what do y'all see? What is here?
I will say it's worth zooming in on the face also.
Did I not get in close enough there?
Just it's intense.
It's such a impressive depiction of expression. What do we see? So I think this is Sharon saying death, suspense, anguish.
It's an aftermath of something that just happened, obviously. And was the older man involved or not? That's what I'm trying to figure out, because he's got blood on his face in kind of an odd way. If you zoom in, that blood is, you kind of wonder, where did it come from? So
okay, let's trace it a little bit here. Okay, so we have blood here.
Yeah.
Coming back to his hands.
Yeah.
I cannot tell because of the pixelation if there is some on the shoe here of the elderly gentleman holding on to him, but it looks like there's some highlights. I cannot tell.
Can you zoom in on the older man's forehead, please?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This feels like suicide aftermath, right? Is what I feel like, but that scepter on the ground and no indication of any other third party, like that's what leads me to it. And this is a horrific thing gone wrong, son in front of father, right? He leaps up from the chair, spills it over, trying to stop this person from doing whatever they're about to do. Like there's a lot there. I'd like to believe that there's something outside, but the scepter keeps bringing me back to, did the father do it? You know, did he strike the son, as I'm calling them?
Tony's, yeah, I think Tony's
God, they're saying the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing, like argument, father-son argument, and oh my God, what have I done? That's the expression that I get. It's either, oh my God, what have I done? Or, oh my God, what did I just watch?
Or what have you done? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you,
Fascinating.
No, I'm in kind of in line with what's been said already.
So do we feel like
the only other thought is, could the old man have walked in? There was a third party. There's no evidence of a third party. Could he have walked in and he's come totally enraged, or at least totally in panic, and trying to comfort the guy, whether it's his son or not?
Well, that would make sense if the blood pool is to camera right. It's as if he was laying down, because that's the side of his head. And now the older gentleman has picked him up and is just cradling him, right? So he walks in, he's over, you know. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of what ifs here, right? But that's what I get from that pool of blood on camera right, and then how he picks him up off of that.
There's no blood on that spear, is there? Or is it on the tip?
Yes. Yeah, there's some right here. Hang on.
Right there?
Oh, is there?
Oh, dang it. Hang on.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
So I think Matt made an interesting point, though, about the chair. And I think that creates some pretty interesting context there. Like, why is the chair knocked over?
Well, there could have been a struggle with that third party.
So then to kind of like clarify some things, we all agree this is what it's about, right? Like whatever this is what it's about. And we know that by the context clues. We know that by the framing. They're right there in the center of the frame. We know that by the contrast. They are the highest contrast point right there. They're bullseyed right in the middle. So we have a lot of, you know, even some of the lines that are here are kind of holding and framing them. So we have a lot of good visual clues to tell us what this is about.
I have a
and
question.
then context clues to guess at, is this involved, etc., and then deep emotion happening here. Now, so Sharon's saying there's so much story and invitation to imagine what has happened. And I think what's so great about this is that we're viewing this from the context of a century outside of when this happened, right? Like we can't look at this and say just off the top of their heads, oh, that's Kim Kardashian, right? We don't know that. We don't know immediately who's in this unless we have some of that historical context, unless we already know what's going on here. We don't look at this and immediately know these characters, right?
So I have a question though. I
Yes.
guess Nicole, since you know what the painting is, but Bassam, Matt, or audience watchers right now, where do you guys think this is?
Where?
Oh, good question.
Well, I mean, the only hint. I mean, there's a lot of hints, obviously, in the decor, but the wear aspect, there's that like high window, which
Sarah guessing Turkey.
Oh, I was being more specific, but for me, Turkey is a guess, right?
It's besides Westeros. I think the rugs, the background on the wall, the clothing screams like 14th century Spain or Middle East, right? So I'm leaning more towards Middle East, but there's that element of, just in the fabrics and the textures and the patterns that I see in the carry bag and the pillow or whatever that is on the left-hand side. So yeah, that's what it says to me.
And Sarah saying the rugs, the wall covering, the clothing, and the pillow for her is what kind of made her feel Turkey. So interestingly, let's if anybody else has any thoughts, go ahead and get those in, and then we'll break this down a little bit. So us reading this from a modern context, looking back on what we're assuming is a historical event, given the clothing, given the situation, where everything's at. The title of this image is actually Ivan the Terrible and his son.
You guys
And I think the fact that people were catching on some of those Eastern influences there, which are definitely in Russian architecture and design. There's a lot of kind of marriage between cultures there with how those things look, the bright colors and the complex patterns and everything. But if you're not aware of the story, Ivan the Terrible did kill his son. He struck him during an argument. And so then what we're seeing is obviously the artist depiction of that event, which everybody picked up on the possibility that was a thing, given the context clues, meaning the intention of the artist to depict Ivan the Terrible having killed his son. Pretty successful. And remember that additional context, the title of the image and the information that the artist includes, that external language is part of what helps us interpret. So even without having that, we still landed in the right place when we were viewing this.
Who's the artist?
It is Ilya Repin. Repin. R-E-P-I-N, Repin. I do not know how to pronounce anything that is Russian, so I can't. I wish Olga was here. She could tell us. Successful, Sharon's saying. Agreed. Okay, so we're going to, those ones I think are going to take a bit. I want to grab one I know for sure that I think we might be able to play with. I think this one is
too hard.
Really interesting.
Too hard.
Really interesting.
It's the hard that makes it fun. All right, so what do we see here? I'll zoom in. And so we can kind of so we can get a little bit of the details. Whoops, that's out, not in.
I see a canvas, but no painter.
Thought that was a backdrop stand. I should not be looking at images right now.
That's why we zoomed in close, man.
Oh, now I see it. Okay, took a while.
Now we
Took
got
a while.
it. So there's a painting on
An easel.
an easel on a rug in a room with white walls, with white. I forgot the name for this stuff. What is it? Crown molding. So without giving away the detail that may help us interpret this, if we were just to come across this, what do we see here? We know we have the easel and the painting.
Well, my first look at it, I didn't know that's an easel. I thought it was 3 legs that kind of end in space, and it made no sense. Right? And I even thought, is that a UFO out there? Until I saw kind of a string kind of, and then I said, is that upside down laundry? I don't know. It was really, really weird until I caught on.
I love that
Right.
Sarah's wondering why the curtains are so short. So now we know, at least physically, what we're looking at. Do we know what it's saying? Or what does it say to us?
I keep thinking like illustration in a book, right? For some reason, it doesn't give me any clues to say that that's exactly what it is, but it's just the feel of it makes it feel like an illustration in a book.
The style is definitely very illustrative, I think.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on here.
Do you think if it was more hyper realistic, it would change your read?
I think so. I think, for me, if it was more hyper realistic, I'd look at this and I'd be like, okay, there's a separation between the background and the foreground because you're going to have canvas versus reality, right? That's kind of what I would see, where everything is the same style. It's a painting of someone painting, and I just honestly don't know what's going on. So yeah, I'm going to sit this one out.
Let's try to break this down together then and see where we can get with it, just from the context of what's in the image. So you said, Matt, it's a painting of a scene, right? So we have a canvas in front of a window instead of seeing the outside. So we've got almost an interpretation between us and the scene, right? So we're not looking at the scene, we're looking at the artist's interpretation of the scene as if it is the thing itself. Maybe there's something there. The artist is trying to sway what we see outside. Sarah saying starving artist.
Clearly not an interior design ad because of those short curtains.
They're also very bland, aren't they? The room itself is very bland. It's beige everywhere.
So if I may, if we rewind to how we usually approach art breakdown, how does this make you guys feel? Matt's face.
Like I'm at a dentist office. Like that's how
I was
it
just
makes me
gonna
feel.
say clinic. I was gonna say clinical.
Clinical.
Well, dented, yeah.
It's like saltines for my eyes. It's just so bland.
Yeah.
Interesting. This makes me introspective.
Crisis, existential crisis.
Tony's saying it feels a bit like a book cover for a mystery pending a title. I can see that. I love how carefully this easel and canvas are placed in the frame. The fact that it's barely cutting into the curtains here.
That's what gave it away to me. That's the first thing I saw that said, oops, there's something. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so we have obviously just enough of the side to see where the canvas is stretched over the frame, and then we've got, you know, the top of the easel, and then just that little bit there. And I just think that's so clever. And if you notice, the composition is off this much.
Off.
Little content aware
Mhm.
fill. It'd be
Right?
great.
Yeah, Bassam, because if you look, we're very, very close here. We're very, very close here to having the easel in the middle of the frame, but it's not. We're pretty even on these sides, right? With the edges of the curtain. We're really, really close.
Right. But wouldn't you say that from the perspective from where the picture is taken, the easel is actually in the middle of the window, but from the perspective where you're standing, so it makes sense.
So the fact that you just use the word perspective, I think, is really important to this image as a whole. Where we're viewing it from, the composition's off.
Oh, that's right. Because if we were painting it, if we were right in front of it, it wouldn't be lined up with the bush at all. Like,
yeah,
from where we're seeing it, it should not be lined up with the bush.
No.
Right.
Not if the painter was standing in front of the painting, right?
That's why I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah, but also this image wants to be symmetrical, doesn't it? Like the window is almost symmetrical in the frame, almost. The tree is almost in the middle, almost. But it's not. None of it is. It's off to the side, all of it, just a little bit. And so we have the great comments coming in. Tony saying, we assume the painted image is what's behind the image.
But that's,
maybe it's not.
Yeah.
I was thinking that earlier, but didn't want to bring it up. I was just like, there's just some big pile of shit behind that picture, and he's just trying to make it beautiful.
That's a good read, though. That's a good read still. Like, I find this image fascinating. And the fact that it's so boring, I think, in design is what makes it so clever. So
yeah, you know, the more I look at it clearly, the more things I can call out and get pulled into the image and start thinking story and whatnot. But it's that immediate view, right? Those first half seconds where I look at it and I'm like, boring, move on, right? And that does the artist a complete disservice for not studying the image and kind of understanding what's going on and just breaking it down and giving it the its due respect, if you will. Sure. But yeah, I saw this and I was just kind of like,
So what's the subject? What's the subject here?
More complex than that.
That's a good question. Bassam, what's the subject? Yeah.
Is it the painting, or is it the outside, or is it the unknown?
I want Matt's angry ranting answer to that question.
What's the subject, angry ranting Matt?
Angry ranting, Jesus. I think the subject is out of frame. I think the subject is the artist, and we're looking at what the artist is doing, right? So if I were to think about being in the scene, the artist is directly to my left, looking at the painting straight on, stepping back, going, what else do I need to add? And I'm the dude drinking a beer in the corner, looking from this angle at the painting and going, yeah, what are you going to do, dude? I think it looks pretty good. Can we go outside? Right. And he's just like, no, I got to finish this painting. And I'm like, dude, there's like a bulldozer behind the thing. Just paint a tree. Let's get out of here. Right. So that's what I see, Becca. Does that help?
I fucking love that. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Do recommend. What if the artist is the painting?
The artist what, sorry?
What if the artist is the painting?
What did you have for breakfast today?
So what do you do as an artist? Do you reflect the things that you see? Do you interpret for others to see what you see when you look at something?
Yes. Yes, interpret.
So is that what the painting is doing? Is giving you a view of a perspective? It's just a thought.
But it's so boring. You know what it reminds me of? I know this may sound, if you guys remember, I sent you guys once two pictures of two prisoners, two artists or two prisoners inside a prison looking out the window with bars on it. And one guy, they're both painting something. One guy painted the bars and the other guy painted what's out there, what's beyond the bars, what it represents to be out behind those, the other side of those bars. I'm kind of making a parallel to that and saying, this is the guy painting the bars because that's all he can see. It's boring as hell.
I'm really tuning into what Tony was saying, that this is kind of like the Joni Mitchell, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot, right? And all he wants to see is what he imagines is still out there. That's why it's placed so perfectly in this, because behind it is just not something pretty. So the artist is making something pretty to cover that view. I don't know. It's just that's what kind of that storyline is picking up for me.
So go ahead, Becca.
Give him the title.
I will in just a second. I just want to share one more thing. So the reason I think that this is such a brilliant image in so many ways is, number one, that we're in the house, right? Like the fact that we've chosen to be in the house. That's where the painter wants us to be in this image. And the house is boring. Like that's a whole part of it, right? Outside is pretty and green and lush, and inside is boring. And we have painted the outside on the inside, but everything is wrong about this image. Like the perspective is wonky. You can only be off to the side to see this actually fit the way that it's supposed to. It looks like it should be symmetrical, but it's not. The whole composition of the image is slightly to one side. The whole thing is almost a meta exercise, making you be the subject. I'm the subject of this painting because it's all about what I'm reading into it. Because there's nothing solid to tell you this is what it's meant to be, right? It's almost an exercise in breaking it down, and you can't really walk away with a wrong answer. Zoom, there isn't actually, so it looks like a red thing. It's the top of the easel.
I'm assuming this is holding the canvas in place, basically.
Yep. I'm assuming this is what you're talking about. Whoops, I'm in the wrong spot. So this image is called The Human Condition.
Oof.
Nope. Give me another one.
Oh.
Why?
That's pretentious for pretentious sake.
It's working.
Yeah, it really is. And it just pissed me off. Being like the human condition. Get over yourself.
The artist is Magritte.
So when Becca said, give him the title, I really got excited. I was hoping that it would actually explain something.
It just makes the existential dread worse, doesn't it?
But seriously, think of it. So as artists, I mean, we all make art of some kind, right? Like, is this not what we're doing? Is this not our condition? Screaming.
Yep. Framing. I mean, in every sense of the word that we use it. How are you framing it? How are you framing it? How is it framed? Reframing is something we talk about all the time for mindset.
Don't do this. You're stretching so hard, you're going to slip a disc. Stop it.
Matt is very angry at the art right now.
We're spending way too much time on the human condition. Get back to art.
Oh, Sarah, if you want to make somebody especially angry, someone with OCD especially angry, show them this.
This is what I'm saying.
Everything's off. So just so that we can hang on. Just so that everybody remembers, I'm gonna just pull up, because you know the artist Magritte, and you are actually familiar with their work. You just don't maybe realize it. Everybody knows these guys, right? Bowler hat guy.
Yeah.
These are some of the ones that we're a little more familiar with. So clearly this is a theme, right? Like this idea of framing is a thing in a lot.
You know, as much as I joke around, this has a very kind of, for me, a Wes Anderson feel. Like this is something that would be a Wes Anderson movie. You know what I mean? And Bill Murray's painting this picture of the outdoor, you know, something like that.
So I just want to read really quickly what Magritte has to say about this painting. In front of a window seen from inside a room, I placed a painting representing exactly that portion of the landscape covered by the painting. Thus, the tree in the picture hid the tree behind it, outside the room. For the spectator, it was both inside the room within the painting and outside in the real landscape. And then in a letter to a friend of his, he says, which is how we see the world, namely outside of us, although having only one representation of it within us. Similarly, we sometimes remember a past event as being in the present. Time and space lose meaning and our daily experience becomes paramount. This is how we see the world. We see it outside ourselves, and at the same time, we only have a representation of it within ourselves. In the same way, we sometimes situate in the past, which is that which is happening in the present. Time and space lose the vulgar meaning that only daily experience takes into account. Questions such as, what does this picture mean? What does it represent? Are only possible if one is incapable of seeing a picture in all its truth, if only one automatically understands that a very precise image does not show precisely what it is. It's like believing that the implied meaning is worth more than the overt meaning. There is no implied meaning in my paintings, despite the confusion that attributes symbolic meaning to my paintings. How can anyone enjoy interpreting symbols? They're substitutes that are only useful to a mind that is incapable of knowing the things themselves. A devotee of interpretation cannot see a bird. He only sees it as a symbol. Although this manner of knowing the world may be useful in treating mental illness, it would be silly to confuse it with a mind that can be applied to any kind of thinking at all.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Still pretty fucking pretentious.
Sharon's saying, oh, my brain hurts. I love that we are ending really here. And of course, there were a lot of more images we had that we could look at and we could do another time. But I like this exercise.
This was fun, yeah.
Yeah, and just trying to figure out what it is. What is the thing, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're hanging out in the audience today, I would love to know, did you find this useful? And if you did, what do you think is useful about it? And then y'all, Matt, Becca, Bassam, do you guys find this useful? And like, what do you think, if you do, what is actually useful about it, you think? Poor Sarah, I'm sorry. We are.
I think, you know, for me, the exercise itself allows me to look at images a little bit differently and really focus in, rather than it being just a visceral emotional response that we get to so much content all the time. It makes me actually look at it and say, what is this doing? You know, as kind of offbeat as I was, that's me catering to ego going, I don't understand this thing, move on, right? So looking at it,
feel free to continue. I like it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, I don't give a shit. There's millions more out there. But I think, you know, the more that I understand what you guys are seeing, it slows me down to look at things and catch all the stuff that I missed. And I love this exercise for exactly that, is hearing what. Now, tonight, it felt like you and Becca were kind of teaming up on me and Bassam, be like, let's see what these guys know, because we know all the things, right? But, you know, I love this exercise of seeing stuff that I've never seen before. I'm an uneducated art idiot, and seeing stuff and understanding, am I close to understanding what the artist had as an intention, or am I way off here in left field? I love doing this exercise. So yeah, that's what I got out of tonight, is just all new perspectives.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot more fun than the way we were approaching it before. It's still different than what a typical critique is.
Right.
And there's a lot more room for really understand. I mean, like linking it back to the visual literacy, a higher level concepts of visual literacy, rather than what we were doing before, which is, okay, we talk about the emotion, but then we get into the specific things like tones and colors and framing and so on. So there's a lot richer discussion for me, and I enjoyed it more. I don't know about you guys.
I like the weird stuff. You guys know that. No, but I mean, I like, just out of my own like practical applied interest, doing stuff like this is so important, specifically because of those different perspectives like Matt was talking about, right? And I love just kind of in general, like the idea of defining what perspective is. Like, say if I were designing a character, right? And so it's one thing if I give you our nice, here's our shot, our portrait shot of our character, but that doesn't give you the actual every perspective of the character. It's one single perspective. So like, say if you're doing a character sheet, you get the front and the back in action and what they're like to get a full, more complete view of something. Or say like if you're designing a building or, you know, an environment or park or whatever the hell, you know, you have your front perspective or your back or your, you know, your aerial view, like all these different slices that create a different perspective that give you a more complete understanding of a thing. So having this sort of roundtable approach, and of course everyone out here who's been commenting, that's going to give us this more complete and well-rounded understanding of what art is and how it's going to impact our audience as working artists. So I like it.
I love it too, and it keeps coming back to me for what I said at the very beginning of the call about the marketing aspect. What am I shooting? What am I creating? Is it getting my audience the way that I want it to? Does it matter to me? Right? Because we've had that conversation as well. But yeah, these types of exercises, I think everybody should do on occasion with your own work. Look at it impartially and say, what is this really saying? Am I getting across the want to get across? And if not, how can I improve it next time? That's the way that I look at it.
I think it's also too that like going out and finding those things that maybe you're not into. Like Matt clearly is not into like weird surrealist art, and that's fine. But you know, going and looking at it is going to make you think, you know, what the hell is going on here? Why should I like this or dislike this? Why do other people actually like this when I think it's really dumb? So I mean, it's going to help you understand your clientele. If you are working with clients, it's going to help you understand the greater like cultural understanding of your audience and what they recognize in art, like people who might recognize Magritte's other work versus that, you know, the human experience painting or human condition painting.
Right.
So forcing ourselves to go do things or look at things that aren't actually maybe of interest or even to our tastes is just going to expand our understanding of the world.
Stop expanding my brain, Becca.
It hurts. It hurts.
I have a certain set of skills.
Yes. Sarah saying, I really enjoyed it, made us think outside the box. Yes. And I think that's what I love about this particular exercise so much is we got to hear what is it that you see that makes you think what you think, right? Like when you see an image and you think a certain thing about it, what is it that you're seeing that you're picking up on that I don't see? And how can I start to see that maybe more and to like add that to my perspective and go, oh, but what about this thing that I didn't think about before? And Tony saying, I'm just glad I'm not alone in noticing wrinkled garments and the other small cues that separate a good amateur from an excellent professional image. And I think that's a great point too, Tony, because the more context we have for why certain things tend to belong in certain places, the easier it is for us to read them. But also we really can learn a lot here just by our own kind of struggles and stumbles to understand an image. And we have a greater depth of understanding in art than many of our clients do So imagine from the client perspective, the way that they are approaching that, even, without some of this insight, and how much, like you said, even earlier, Matt, like you have a kind of a gut level instinctive reaction to a thing that tells you yes or no. And then when you can stop and go, well, why no, right? Like, why am I having this gut level? Nope. Well, the picture's boring. The light is flat. The colors are boring. Like there isn't anything happening there that makes me want to see it. You need some kind of extra push to force you to stay in the image long enough, right? But we know that for so many of our clients, they are not out looking for an image experience. They want to see something pretty. And so we have to recognize the difference between what they're going for and how do we include those visual triggers that are going to make them go, ooh, as opposed to like, how do we do that? We have to understand that visual literacy in order to figure out the difference between what makes it great versus what makes it
But the great and the meh is all subjective. There's 7 billion people on this planet. Someone's going to be like, that's badass. Someone's going to be like, that sucks. And
you better know that about your audience.
Just better know that about your audience.
Yep. Why? What is it? Why do they like those visual things? What do they read in it? I mean, that's what this whole exercise is for. So I had a lot of fun tonight. I hope you guys had a lot of fun tonight. We are going to continue having these discussions about visual literacy, and we will be back again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time for the Friday edition of Morning Talk Now with the Artist Forge. I hope y'all will join us tomorrow. We're going to continue discussing visual literacy. We're still on the internal language of the image. So we're going to keep going with that. So join us bright and early tomorrow morning. I'm going to look like a complete mess. I hope you guys are ready for that. Yes. Why no? 100%.
I'm not even going to take a shower between tonight and tomorrow morning because I can't.
It's true. That's what makes it such a good joke. Okay. All right. So join us then, everybody. We're so glad you were here with us. Also, don't forget, you can go check out theartistforge.com where there are blog posts and podcasts up that can help you learn more about how to think like an artist. If you are watching this from YouTube or if you're catching the replay and you're not in the Facebook group, highly encourage you guys come join the Artist Forge on Facebook. It's a private group, so you do have to answer a few questions to get in for the protection of our members, but come be part of those conversations. And we will see everybody hopefully tomorrow morning. Have a great one, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.